Welcome back. Today things are going to be really fun because, right, and I know this might be shocking, but two very large publishers are both acting in a rather suspicious manner. The first one, it turns out that Microsoft are actually willing to invest in smaller teams in narrative games just so long as they come under the Activision budget, because for the first time in years, Activision are setting up a team whose whole job is to produce narrative games. Yep, and when I say narrative game, I actually mean a narrative game, not like a narrative cinematic for Call of Duty Warzone. So that is a little bit bizarre, and it feels like upside down land. The other thing then is Strauss, big Strauss Zelnick, the CEO of Take-Two. He's threading a very, very fine line between outright lies and technically the truth, because he's telling reporters that Take-Two definitely has not closed two studios that they've absolutely started closing. It's a little bit weird. So yes, another day where we basically have got to navigate corporate nonsense, which is half of what we do here anyway. Of course, no nonsense from us though. If you want to help out our mission, you can go to bellular.games. Over there, you will get access to loads of news reports ahead of course, me recording them and them even being videos, a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't become videos, like Loading Screen, which is our daily newsletter. People absolutely love it. It's there every day of the week. It's awesome. I read it myself. It's actually how I find out about loads of game news. And over there, we also call out exciting new releases as they actually happen. That's what the crack is. It's the best way to help us in, honestly, a time where things are a bit crazy and weird and AdSense absolutely sucks. So to all our members, thank you. And with that said, okay, let's talk about Microsoft. They've opened a studio, apparently. I don't know, the ratio is what? They open one for every four that they kill. So if you want a bit of a clear understanding of where money is going in the sort of land of Xbox, well, some of it is going to Poland. They've revealed a new team, and of course, this is only a week after they closed 3 entire studios under Bethesda, and they folded a 4th into ZeniMax Online. So this was captured by VentureBeat, and the first thing to note here is that they're not part of the Call of Duty industrial complex, which is crazy, right? Because the whole point with Activision is everything was thrown into COD. Like literally everything. I mean, Vicarious Visions were going to be working, we have since had leaks, that they were going to be working on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 remaster, but they didn't. And yes, they were, of course, doing Call of Duty stuff, but more importantly, they were basically leading on Diablo 2 Resurrected, and then they just became part of the Blizzard blob. So that happened to them. Of course, lots of great studios like Toys for Bob, who had to make Call of Duty for a while, but thankfully, the good news there is Toys for Bob are independent. They do have a working relationship with Microsoft. They've been dropping very Spyro-like hints. Apparently, there are even some new rumors related to a new Spyro game, so maybe there's cause for hope there. But anyway, whenever they do go outside of Call of Duty, things can actually go quite well for Activision. I mean, just look at them publishing Sekiro. The new studio is called Elsewhere Entertainment, and they are supposed to be making a brand new narrative-based, genre-defining AAA franchise. They're already staffing up locally, and they're being supported by senior staff from the US. As we know that from their annoyingly flowery statement where they talk about how they're making, of course, a team that will have bold, new, amazing, diverse ideas, blah, 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 blah. The core things to know, though, the studio is called Elsewhere Entertainment. They say they are a premier studio, so maybe that's them trying to say that they're big. They say that they're standalone, which I think for a lot of people, that'll be read as trying to say, no, we're not just an Activision support studio. That's basically what they've said. We don't really know a great deal more other than they do have quite a few people who are fairly experienced across a whole load of franchises. Now, ultimately, right, it is really good here. Like the TLDR, it is good news that Activision apparently believe there is space for new IP. Because under Bobby Kotick, do you know what we weren't getting? We weren't getting IP. I mean, Bobby Kotick's was there for like decades. So, I mean, we did get lots of new IP under Bobby Kotick, but of course, the prevailing direction, post Sekiro, Call of Duty being massive, is that it was only Call of Duty. So that is good news. We do not know, though, what the new IP will be. But again, just remember the big old long line of often pretty good, like even licensed titles from Activision. You've got the likes more recently of Sekiro, right, which was amazing. So the idea of them doing narrative is cool. Again, we don't know whether this is single player. It's not explicitly said. But of course, there is a more mercenary element to this, which of course we do have to cover. And that is that this company is based in Poland, which, I mean, hey, is awesome, right? The Polish game dev scene is growing and growing. That is absolutely fantastic. And of course, there's a lot of studios in Poland. There's a very big one called CD Projekt Red, so they will benefit from just the Polish game sector growing, right? So that's pretty good. But of course, one of the big reasons here is a cheaper cost per person than California. And I think this is really, really important because it's not just that, like, there's the mercenary element, but also if we're thinking about this as customers, well, do you want a game that, let's just say, has $100 million budget? That's a very large budget, by the way. And many AAA games are 3 or 4 times that budget. But let's just say 100 million, a cheap game. So, would you rather that is going on people who have absolutely humongously inflated California salaries, where at the end of the day, so much of that money is just going into messed up housing market of that state and to super, super high state taxes? Like, would you rather have that? Or would you rather have that money going into, it's weird, when I say people who are not being paid as much, you can see how that really sounds quite bad and quite nasty. You could maybe also say, people who are living in an economy that hasn't turned into an absolutely horrible bubble, because you can pay somebody in Poland, or indeed somebody here in Northern Ireland, half as much as you would pay somebody who is in California, and they would be perfectly happy. I mean, like, straight up, if I lived in California, I would have big financial problems because of how insanely inflated and crazy that economy is. Even just quickly going through there, like through a few hotels and stuff at BlizzCon, I was like, again, I was shocked. California, I think, is becoming a very stupid and inefficient place to develop video games. How many times are we seeing these, pretty large VC-backed, to the likes of the Palia developer, where, like, I knew roughly what the Palia team size was. I knew roughly what their budget was. It was fucked. It was screwed. There was no way they were going to be successful with how much money they basically had to throw into that game. We've had so many. I mean, just because Riot can pay that money does not mean others can. I think a lot of game teams grew in a very, very unsustainable time where VC money was sort of, it was a lot easier to come by. Point basically is, less California, really, really good for, I think, the overall efficiency of games. I mean, I get our whole industry is based there because it's a really strong talent cluster, but it just gets to the point where the finances of the place are insane. You look at what people have got to do to pay for rent. You look at how traditionally tech would be sniping people from games real easy, real cheap compared to a tech salary. I mean, who knows? Maybe that bubble's kind of bursting, but look, point is, screw California. Goodbye. Go away. Too expensive. So that's probably good, right? If a bunch of money's going into a video game, I would rather that money goes further so that we get a really good video game, instead of something where you just end up thinking, how did you spend however many 100 million to make this? It's really small. It doesn't make sense. I think that is broadly a pretty good thing. They, of course, talk a lot about how they are leaning on talent from the likes of The Last of Us, Uncharted, Witcher, Cyberpunk, Destiny, The Division, Far Cry, that kind of thing. But obviously here, there will be a strong element of frustration because Bethesda have just closed 3 studios, under the principle that ZeniMax can't manage all of their projects or potential hiring surges because they don't have enough managers. So instead of getting more managers and leadership, just kill all the teams, sure. So that's going on. But no, Activision apparently can just form an entire new studio to do new IP. Cool. So that'll be a very bitter pill to swallow for people who are, currently going through the process of losing their jobs. Now, obviously here, there's a degree of timing that makes this story spicier in that way. The team at Elsewhere Entertainment has not just popped up overnight, right? They would have been preparing for this for multiple months, maybe even before the Microsoft acquisition was completed. It's not like they're at fault for any of this. It's just bad timing. It's timing that will sting. And, it's timing that is pretty close to some statements made by Strauss Zelnick. Strauss Zelnick, of course, man who does look ridiculously good for his age and did write a book. I think it's called Become Ageless. So, like, damn, Strauss. But here, this is, I mean, if you've seen the bright side of Strauss with all of his fitness and his health, this is the darker side of Strauss, the CEO side. Take-Two Interactive, the GTA people, they had their latest earnings call last week, and they revealed some fun details. The biggest thing, of course, is GTA 6, that it's targeting an autumn 2025 release window, so if you felt vibes in the spirit realm, it's just the rest of the industry thinking, okay, autumn 2025 is when GTA is coming out. Do we move move away from that? Could we be delayed into that? What's going to happen? Because pretty much the biggest player in the industry, bar none, right? There's that. I think lots of studios will be running and hiding, and it probably means that Q1 2026, that'll be a hell of a quarter, where all of those games that have just taken a 6-month delay to run away from GTA, where those will come out. But to finish off the reveals before we get into the juicy thing, well, they teased the next iteration of one of 2K's biggest and most beloved franchises at the Summer Games Fest. That could be Civilization, could be BioShock, could be Borderlands. The other thing that happened, though, is questions. So Rebecca Valentine of IGN asked Strauss Zelnick directly about the closures of Roll7 and Intercept Games. That, of course, is the people who made Rollerdrome, and also the people who had been charged with making Kerbal Space Program 2, which itself, massive ongoing shit show. So here's what Strauss said. We didn't shutter those studios, to be clear, and we are always looking at our release schedule across all our studios to make sure it makes sense. So we are being very judicious because we are in the middle of a cost reduction program that we've already concluded and are now fully rolling out. We've announced that we're saving $165 million in existing and future costs, but we haven't shuttered anything. So there you go. Roll7 and Intercept Games are not being shuttered, allegedly, because it really does seem like bullshit. And the reason why is Take-Two are legally required to file things with, in this case, the relevant state government. It's in Seattle. It's a thing called WARN. So whenever a business is being killed or something like that, it's got to be filed in WARN. So this appearing on WARN led to widespread reporting from verified sources through this month. Now, it's not impossible that the reporting is wrong, to be clear, but thus far, the evidence certainly suggests that those studios are effectively dead. And that's especially when those layoffs were following claims in 2023 that Take-Two actually weren't planning any layoffs. But again, you have to file because of the WARN program, and they did file. Here it is, you can see the filing. It's where the studio's located, and it is a number of people that's roughly the size of the studio, right? Weird. So generally, a sign that things aren't going the way that corporate would like is when the appointed PR representative steps in to clear up a potential misunderstanding. So this is where the PR rep stepped in and tried to explain things more succinctly to Valentine in case, of course, Strauss got himself mixed up. So here's what the PR person said. What we've said is, in the 8K filing that we put out, we talked about the cost reduction plan is approximately a 5% reduction in headcount worldwide, but we did not give a label-by-label breakdown of what that looks like. So that's the trick. Strauss is right. They have not announced that they're closing any studios, because those studios, they exist under Private Division. That's Private Division's job. They just haven't explained how they're doing their cost cuts. But of course, because of legal compliance and WARN, we do know those cuts are happening. And that basically means that all the Take-Two has got to do is represent what is in their filings, and all that they know is the 5% reduction in headcount. And that doesn't say shit about Intercept Games or Roll7. But again, what does speak to those is the actual documents about the closure that people passed on to Bloomberg. So here's a tweet from Jason Schreier. Hey everyone, let's play a game called What's the Truth? On the left, comments from Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick to IGN today. On the right, part of the note sent to Roll7 employees that was obtained by Bloomberg earlier the month, shared now with the source's permission. So it's like, alright Strauss, cool. How about this document though? Yeah, anyway. If you didn't laugh, you'd cry. That's it. So I heartily encourage, taking it seriously, but also, I suppose, with a bit of an understanding that it is just inherently a realm of chaos that we're all in, but thankfully that realm of chaos sometimes does lead to pretty good video games, and amid the torrent of pretty awful news that this year has had for professionals working in the games industry, and while there's been lots of issues with AAAs, indies, AAs, like there have been an incredible amount of amazing games that came out this year. Again, more than you'd probably have time to play. So even though there is a lot of rough stuff, there is also lots of good stuff. As of course the people who regularly enjoy Loading Screen that we publish at Bellular.games, and of course that will end up in your email inbox, as they all know, because we call out cool shit when it happens. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you found this to be a fun little dive into Strauss Zelnick. Is he lying? Technically no, and technically is the best form of correct. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.